we're also sitting as all special taxing districts. I don't know why, but when we meet, we always meet like that. So this is the meeting of February the 12th. It's 9 a.m. and I'm calling this meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everybody please stand up and Supervisor McLeod, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, as everyone, I hope, is aware, this is a special meeting. We don't get to do this very often, so you're going to have to forgive us a little bit if we miss a step here or two, but we're going to try to do the best we can. The first item in the agenda is called to the public, but I'd like to explain a little bit the process, if I may, how we're going to proceed. We're going to try to deal with this as closely as possible to a kind of a job interview for a high-paying job. And so we're going to ask the applicants or the nominees to please give us an opportunity to ask you questions individually. So we're going to ask you to go upstairs. We have a special room with no media whatsoever. We're going to take your phones. No, we're not going to take your phones. But we're going to ask you to stay there because we're going to be asking questions, and we certainly don't want the next candidate to know what the questions are, what the answers of the other one, of the other candidate may be. So if we do have a call to the public first, we certainly don't want to start, and we don't want to do much of a call to the public unless it's particularly important that that anyone wants to say something. This process obviously is new to us, but we'll try to do the best we can with it. So the first thing we're going to do is ask the candidates. There will be someone here from Paul. Paul will take you upstairs. It's a nice room. I hope they have coffee and water and nothing else over there. We want to tell you before you go upstairs that we're very, very pleased with the quality of the candidates, with the people that you have sent us, the precinct committeemen. We want to thank them ahead of time, and we want to thank them with you present. We expected no less. They did a great job. Your resumes, any one of you could do the job, I'm sure, but we're going to ask you anyway later on during the process. So please, could you please go upstairs, the candidates? Cora's not here? Oh, there she is. I didn't see her.
Oh, yeah.
It won't take long. Famous
right
last
then.
words. It's tough, isn't it? But you better get used to it. People are going to talk about you anyway, behind your back.
You want to draw lots for the names?
I didn't think of that. I just thought, we'd take them in any order. But if you prefer to draw lots, the first one. Before we get to that, let me just take care of the call to the public. I'm going to open call to the public just in case someone wants to address the board. But I would really recommend that you wait until you listen to all the, to the nominees, and maybe there's a question or two we may have or something that you may want to add afterwards. But if you bear with us, we'd like to sort of get going with the process. I'm sure the millions of viewers on Facebook and everywhere else that are watching this, need for us to get going so they can get back to work. So I'm going to leave the call to the public open, and we'll draw. What are we doing? Dry numbers or?
Yeah, I didn't think about it ahead of time.
I didn't think about that ahead of time. Who goes first? Well, as a chairman, I can pull rank and basically just call one. We'll start with Cora, ladies first, all right? And then we'll, make that decision along the way. So just to get everybody settled, please do not say anything or, just scream or holler or something, your approval or disapproval or whatever is being said. You'll get your chance. I'll try to get you a chance to say whatever you want to say. So with someone here, just go ahead. Yeah, she
Mr.
just
Chairman,
left.
have you selected the questions that you're going to ask? You have a
Well,
draft of
we
8
have 7
questions.
questions, and I've chosen 5. One of them will be asked by Supervisor McLeod because he's the one that, wanted that question asked. They're going to be the same questions. We have a small questionnaire. It's 7 questions. Yeah, we'll go in order. But, what we'll do, I don't.
We can, that way each of us will ask a different question throughout the process.
Well, I asked if they wanted to ask a question, and some of the board members decided they didn't. So I was going to just simply ask them myself and let you ask number 3, unless you want to take one.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, so you see, it's going to be simple.
Okay.
All right?
Just ask them all.
No, I don't want to ask number 3. That's your question.
Okay.
So please, someone bring in Cora. Paul, is Paul over there? He's probably uncommunicated. We don't get, most of us haven't done this. I did it once and I don't remember. It was so long ago that we did, we had an appointment to make through the process, but I was involved in one. A little different than today's because today it's a Republican. I remember that time was a Democrat, so it was a little easier for me to go through that process than today, but hopefully this will go quickly and it'll go smoothly. Unlike what they're gonna face in the legislature, which is never quick and never painful. Always painful. I heard the mayor is here, is he? Mayor of Yuma? No? Is he hiding? He left? Oh, he's got a beer. I forgot that.
He's incognito,
He's
yeah.
incognito. No, Mayor, we want to recognize your presence. I know everybody here has a particular interest. Oh, you should the podium. Yes.
That's the first thing I did when I saw the mayor. I went, oh.
This is going to be difficult. Cora, good morning.
Good morning.
Again, these questions are going to be the same. There's going to be 5 questions asked, and answer them the best you can. And remember, this is not particularly a test. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your personal background, and how long you have lived in Yuma County, what your interests are. We want to learn something about you personally.
Okay, well, I'm a mother and a grandmother and been an educator for 50 years. I was surprised to discover I lived in Yuma County for 35 years. That seems like a long time. I graduated from Flagstaff, from what was then, I think, Arizona State College, and taught in Missouri and California and Washington, and then eventually came back to Flagstaff and taught, and then moved down to Antelope. I wanted to get my grandfather, my husband's father, off the mountain. He couldn't take the altitude anymore. And then eventually moved into Yuma. Taught at, my last teaching job was at Arizona Western College. And then at 75, I decided I should take down my shingle. So I have 8 children and 12 grandchildren. And I've always been interested in politics. Of course, I was not active during all those years, raising 8 children and having a full-time job. But I've always kept up with politics and that kind of thing. I have, since coming to Yuma County, I've been active in the Republican Party, and I'm a member of Rio Colorado Republican Women, and I've been a member of the Tea Party since its beginning. So I have a lot of interest in that. As far as sports things, I swim almost every day. I'm depriving myself of that this morning since I'm here, but and I used to bike every day, but for some reason, since my husband passed, I've lost interest in biking, and I can't figure out what I biked before I met him. So anyway, let's see, what else do you want to know? I'm very much a constitutional conservative. I would like to see the states rest their power. I think they've ceded way too much power to Washington, D.C. This is where decisions need to be made, here and at the state level, not in Washington, D.C. I really enjoyed my stay in Yuma. I kind of came here accidentally, I took the first interview that came along because I wanted to kind of practice. I hadn't taken an interview. I wanted, have my answers all rehearsed. And I happened to interview with Sid Grandy from Antelope High School. And if you knew him, you know that he was, a guy who would charm you to death. So by the end of the interview, I went home and I said to my husband, I think I want this job. It was quite a shock at first, but anyway, I've really enjoyed my stay in Yuma County. I am a strong supporter of local issues, and I watched the redistricting thing quite closely and was disappointed that we didn't have much power toward it. I'm certainly concerned about water issues and that kind of thing. I try to kind of glance through issues at state level, and I'm always just taken aback at how many issues there are and how much goes on. But I think that is where it needs to be done.
Okay, there's 5 or 6 questions, and I'm sure that the supervisors realize that when we ask for someone for an opening statement, some of those questions may not be necessarily asked later on. you know, you've covered quite a bit of ground already. The second question is, why do you want to serve as state legislature representative for District 13? What do you feel you bring to this service that may be unique compared to the other candidates? And as I've said, you know, you've gone through a lot of that in the first question. Is there anything you'd like to add about, you know, why you want to serve? I mean, you've already stated pretty much.
Let's see, what do I want to add to it? I think it's really important that Yuma has a strong voice, and I do think that I can add to that strong voice as far as getting messages out and that kind of thing. To be honest, the reason that I stepped forward was we needed 3 candidates, and so I became one. But I have been interested in politics and state politics and that kind of thing.
You be careful what you step into. All right. Supervisor McLeod, you wanted to ask a question?
Can you describe for us the process that a bill goes through to become law?
Well, it starts, of course, with the proposal from the legislator and goes to committee, and then if the committee agrees, then it goes to the legislative committee, and then they agree to take it to the floor and vote on it and get sent to the Senate or back and forth or whatever, and then sent to the governor for signature if it passes, who either passes it or vetoes it one way or the other.
Spoken like a true teacher, huh?
Yes, it is.
Very simple, very succinct, to the point.
Perfect.
You know, what actions will you take to get quickly up to speed on the bills and the issues that before? That wasn't a question I was going to ask anyway, but I'll ask it. That former Representative Shooter sponsored a champion during his legislative session. Is there something that you, maybe I need to...
My biggest issue, I think, because I've been in education all these years, is education. And I know when I remember back when we got the education, boy, I lost my words. The Department of Ed at the national level, I was so proud to think that, you know, we finally came of age and education is finally being recognized. And when Goldwater said, you know, we should not accept federal education, I'm thinking, oh, what a foolish man. And then it was not long after that that I went, oh my God, he was right, you know, because there were so many things that happened that have just really tied the hands of education. And so of course that's dearest to my heart. I was raised, I'm a farmer, and we did have a little farm out there in the Welton Valley, and so I'm very much concerned about water issues and the farming industry, knowing that it's the heart of this country and this area. So I think that's important too.
Okay. One more questions and then we'll, you know, just finally. How will you ensure that Yuma County's interests and priorities are heard and taken seriously at the state legislature?
How do you ensure that they're, yeah, you know, I think Yuma County used to have a very strong voice, right? It was very powerful, and somehow we kind of feel like we're the stepchildren somehow out here at the edge of the borders. I think communication, you know, is really important to get that voice heard. And
it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
You know, remember, if you might have already answered part of that question through your presentation. And this is our final question, or at least my final question. The board can, you know, I'll let them ask any questions if they have any doubts or anything to wrap it up. But do you have any questions for the board? Would you like to make any final statements to assist us in our deliberation?
I think I've said my piece, and I thank you very much for having me here. And I thank LD 13 for nominating me. That was an honor. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. This has been great, and I'm happy to meet you and know about you. And I know you will make a great representative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you
Make
can
sure you
stay
don't
down
tell the
here.
other members anything. Oh, she can stay here.
Yeah.
Gary, are you next? Oh, no. I thought there was a wild card here. The wild card. Gary, step up. Is that a nomination that I didn't get last time?
Slipping in.
No, let's get the next candidate. Bring in Paul.
This is our courier, Christy.
Yeah. I'm not sure you're gonna be able to find him. Is he, you know, a little tall guy? Yeah. And again, I'm sorry, I didn't ask at the end if any of the board members have any questions, any follow-up questions or anything, just make sure you let us know.
Don't phase us anymore.
I'm glad you learned well. Got you well. I'll take the opportunity to coffee while this is happening. You think you'll probably quickly, here quickly, you know, it takes long steps, I think. You know how we hate dead spots, where nobody's saying anything. And politicians will always, find a way to fill them up, so. Better not be a sidebar,
And then you
guys.
get a,
We're talking about a dog.
we're talking about dogs.
There you go. We're gonna do that.
He had his dog with him when he went and picked up his 4-H barbecue the other day, and so I got to meet him. So.
I was just describing the joy of the dog running in the living room and barking at 3 or 4 in the morning because the neighbor's dog barked. Marvelous.
I have the same issue.
Yeah.
All right. Paul, come in. Paul, good morning again. And, that process with Cora took all of 10 minutes. We hope you can beat that.
Oh, no.
Just kidding.
Oh, here
Just
we
a chance.
go.
I'm going to ask you maybe 5 questions. They're the same questions that I asked for the other candidate. And again, when I ask the question, you may expand a little bit of it. And we understand that every once in a while, what we're going to do is, what we're going to have is a question, an answer that expands a little bit. So don't feel like you have to, if you already answered the question, I think that all you have to do or say I think that I've already answered that question, it'd be fine. I'll try not to ask it if I feel that you already asked.
Okay.
So there will be 5 questions and then we'll, wrap it up at the end. At any time, the board members, I already told them, can follow up on a question if they feel they're not, that they need additional information, okay? The first one is kind of simple. We have seen your bio, but tell us a little bit about yourself, your personal background, how long you've been in Yuma County, what your interests are, etc. This will help us learn something about you personally, something that will help us learn something about yourself.
Sure. I'll just kind of give you my life story, I guess. I spent
No,
my
wait a
have
minute. Put a time frame on it.
Yeah, do we have a time limit?
There's a time limit on these things.
Well, my first 20 years, I grew up on a farm working with my dad on a small farm that grew wheat and vegetables and alfalfa and sugar beets and different things. And then I went off to college, became an electrical engineer, computer scientist, and lasted about 5 years doing telecommunications research in the big city. And I'd had enough of that, and so I went back to agriculture, and I moved to Safford, Arizona, a town about 1/10 the size of Yuma. And for about a dozen years, had a hay business there, so I was in production ag, owned my own business, was, signed both sides of a paycheck. And it was there that I got active with both the Republican Party and with the Farm Bureau. And I went through a pretty amazing program called Project Central, which is a rural leadership program, and that opened my eyes to the fact that a person can really make a difference and can work on public policy. And I decided at that point that's what I wanted to do. And all my time working in the field, I was thinking about, what could I be doing with these organizations I was working in to make a difference for rural Arizona. So I ended up going to work for the Farm Bureau for a couple years out in the field working with the counties and the volunteer leaders. And then I took a job with them as director of organizations. So that was an opportunity, again, to focus on rural issues and public policy. The bad part was I had to move into Maricopa County. So I lived in the town of Gilbert there for 8 years. But that was fine. I mean, I got to know Maricopa County and the people there while working on rural issues. And I also went through a program there called the Flynn Brown Civic Leadership Academy, which really gave us intense understanding of issues like water and like the budget and like taxes and higher education and K-12 education and healthcare. We got, like on healthcare, we had the person who had created Access and told us why it was created, what it was supposed to do, how it's morphed, and anyways, so that was an amazing program also. And then I was fortunate enough to get the job here to head up and build and head up the Yuma Center of Excellence for Desert Agriculture. So I worked with the university and with the ag industry here. For the past 3.5 years, we moved here right away. It wasn't necessarily a requirement of the job, but I absolutely would have done nothing else, and we were so happy to move here, and frankly, to leave Maricopa County and get back to rural, because most of my life I've lived in towns much smaller than Yuma, actually. So we've been here 3.5 years. We've been immediately fell in love with it. My son came down with us. He graduated from Gila Ridge High School. He's now going to the U of A, but he's doing the U of A ag program through AWC here so that he can work in the industry. My wife, who's here, is a substitute teacher in town, and I jumped onto several boards. I'm on the GYEDC board, the chamber board, the Southwest Arizona Town Hall. I'm a lecturer at St. Thomas Indian Mission. So we loved it here and jumped in, and this is our place. So, like I say, I consider myself a rural guy, an ag guy, and very much a Yuma guy.
Thank you, Paul. Why do you want to serve at the state legislature? What do you feel you bring to the service that it's unique compared to the other candidates?
So I do think I bring a lot to the table. I've got a lot of experience with it. I've been 20 plus years in sort of grassroots politics, and not just the grassroots politics, but also, like I say, the organizations like the Farm Bureau and different things where I've been involved. I sit in on the calls and the meetings about issues having to do with water and having to do with, HERF. I used to be on the Arizona Highway Users Board, and their whole purpose was to keep the cost shifts from happening with HERF. And so I've been in on these calls and these efforts, and I know the players. I'm very familiar. I've just built a lot of networks, and so this is something I've always seen myself doing in the future, was serving in this way. Frankly, to be an advocate for rural Arizona, that's my thing. That's been my life, and I'm very concerned about rural Arizona not getting their fair shift on these issues. And so that's where my heart is advocating for rural Arizona. And this is a great opportunity that I didn't expect to come at this point in my life, but it was definitely something that was going to happen, I believe, at some point in the future, and this opportunity came now. So I'm really prepared, I think, more than most people, to make a difference on day one. As luck would have it, I was a district chairman when I lived up in the town of Gilbert. In my district are the people who are now the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. So they know me well. I'll be able to, when I get up there, should I be so lucky this afternoon, they trust me, they know me, and they'll put me in positions of where I can have an impact.
Right. The third question is Supervisor McLeod.
Can you describe for us the process that a bill goes through to become law?
Sure. So it starts with an idea, right? An idea could come from me, from listening to my constituents. It could come from elected officials like yourselves. It could come from organizations like the County Supervisors Association, the League, the Farm Bureau, Western Growers. They all have ideas of, there ought to be a law, right? That's not always a good thing, by the way, in my mind. But and the process then is that gets given to Legislative Council, and they draft it into bill form, and then that gets introduced, in this case by me, and I would get as many co-sponsors as I could to show lots of support. And then that gets read in the House and gets assigned to several committees, hopefully not too many. And those committees are where public hearings are held, and you hear from lobbyists, you hear from citizens, constituents, why it's a good thing, why it's a bad thing, which I love the idea of doing that, by the way, just learning all this, the give and take of all these different issues. If all the committees it's assigned to recommend a due pass on that, then, and I've been to these committees, I've testified to committees, then they go back to the House, and there's a process there where if they eventually are passed by the whole House, then they get sent over to the Senate, and the Senate's doing the same thing and sends them back over here. So actually we're in the middle of session. there's one more week where the House hears its own bills, and then there's a crossover week, and then you hear the other bills. So if your bill then gets heard in the Senate, it may get changed and eventually gets passed. If it gets passed in the identical form, then it's sent on to the governor. If not, there's a conference committee that tries to bring it together to one form that's agreeable to both houses that they can then pass and send to the governor.
Well, thank you.
Question?
Probably more
I think
than
I just learned.
Yeah. What actions will you take to get quickly up to speed on the bills and issues that former Representative Shooter sponsored or championed during the legislative session?
So I actually did reach out to the speaker and asked him about that, figuring I could pick up whatever was there and carry it forward. And really what I heard was that there wasn't a whole lot that he had introduced, and most of those were pretty much not going anywhere. So we're past the time when you can introduce legislation. So the effect I'm going to be able to have now is to work on the issues, that I'm familiar with, the issues that are going through, and have an impact on things like water and cost shifts and things like that. That's where my impact will be this session.
Right. Well, I'm going to ask the fifth question, which I'm sure you probably answered through the process already. But how will you ensure that Yuma County's interests and priorities are heard and taken seriously at the state legislature?
So I just, like I say, I know them. I know the people. I know the players. It's what I care about, and honestly, I've already been in that position where people statewide, because they know me from kind of the different positions I've held and activities that I've done. They know I'm from Yuma. I'm the Yuma guy, right? When I walk in a room and they ask me about it, but how does this affect Yuma? What they want me to present on what's agriculture doing with water in Yuma. It's a role I've been playing, and this would give me a better platform to advocate for Yuma. And I just would mention too that with that network I have, LD13 is 70% of the voters are in Maricopa County. I believe it's critical that we hold at least one of those 3 seats from LD13 from Yuma County, and I know that I have the support in Maricopa County also to help me get reelected, which is something that I would absolutely do to try to keep Yuma represented.
Good. This one is one that is a little touchy because I'm basically asking you, is there any questions that you would like to ask the board, or would you like to make a final statement to assist us in our deliberation today? We can take the questions to the board aside.
Okay. No, I mean, I'll just reiterate, I think I bring a lot to the table. This is something I've really, when I look at it, my whole life has brought me to this point where I'm uniquely qualified to do this. And with the networks that I have, with the knowledge that I have, and the passion I have for rural Arizona, I really think I'll be a great spokesman for Yuma County. One of my attributes is to listen, and I can guarantee you I will be listening to you guys and to the ag community and to the military folks, and I thrive on that. I thrive on listening, analyzing. I'm an engineer, as I said, so my ideal world is to listen, figure out logically what makes sense, and activate and move forward. So I'm just really excited for this opportunity. And
Any questions?
Guarantee you I'll do you proud.
I do have one that it's particularly interesting to me. You do serve in a position today. What would happen to that?
So I do this with the full support of my boss, who's the dean of the College of Agriculture. And we both fully support this center. It's one of the things I'm most proud of in my life, is building this Yuma Center of Excellence. So obviously it would take some adjustment as to what role I would play in that. I'm willing to make whatever sacrifice I need to represent Yuma County. But like I say, having the support of my boss, we will figure out how that looks in the future.
Any questions, guys? No? Ladies? No? Thank you very much, Paul. You don't have to go back to isolation. You can stay here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next. Yeah. And I do want to thank the candidates that I've already spoken. I mean, it's great that you said it before. I mean, it's a learning experience for us. I mean, we know we have valuable members in the community that are doing a lot of things, but most of the time we don't get a chance to meet them. So it's great for us to have a chance to listen to you. Obviously, and I'm going to say this. I was going to say this at the end of this thing, but like I said, politicians are bored this vacuum of not saying anything. Silence is not a good campaign. So, I do want to emphasize one thing. This is a Republican legislative district. It's held by a Republican. So I intend to, if it's okay with the rest of the board, give the Republican members of the board an opportunity to lead the process. I find this to be the fair way to do things. So when we get to the point of nominations, I'd appreciate it if the Republican members take the lead in the nomination process. You may not take the lead in the voting process, but the nomination process, will be yours to make. Okay, so start, thinking about it. See, there's more silence right there. Maybe we can get a legal decision. That should take about 20 minutes.
I tell you, short week.
Tim, it's a Monday, dude. You got to fill it up. It's a board meeting. Tim, welcome. We were having a tough time filling in the blank space between when a candidate finishes and the next one comes in, but we certainly appreciate you coming in today. I just mentioned it, and you weren't here, so I'll do it again. How honored we are to have all you guys come over and and present yourself to us, and how much we learn every time any one of you're all leaders in the community. So it's really nice to have you here today. I know why we're here, and we want you to relax a little bit. There will be 5 questions. None of them are really the embarrassing kind, I hope. So just take your time, and we understand that maybe when you answer one of them, you'll be answering the other one or something. So you don't have to answer them twice. You can say, I already answered that one, and it would be fine.
Okay.
But if you want to add anything, you get an opportunity. There is a time frame that we follow, but we're not gonna apply it to you. You're the last one.
Okay.
If you believe that, then tell us something. The first one is, tell us a little bit about yourself, your personal background, how long you've been in Yuma, what are your interests. We just want to learn things about you personally. We do have your bio, so we
Okay.
do know. You don't have to list everything in the bio, because the bios are really long.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman Reyes. Thank you, supervisors, for allowing me to be here before you today. A little bit about myself is born and raised here in Yuma, here in the Gila Valley. Farmer. I have a grain company. We also own 2 Sport Clips franchises here in Yuma and 2 Sport Clips franchises in Buckeye and Goodyear. Always been. Someone told me the other day when they asked me to run for this position, they said, you've been training for this all your life, whether it's being in FFA or doing projects and working for one of the things that's on my bio is I was first vice president for the Arizona Farm Bureau, which, if you don't understand that, we do a lot of education in that role. You're being elected statewide, and so being in politics and trying to educate the community and educate lawmakers on what issues are affecting rural Arizona was important to me. We learned a lot about that. We went to D.C., working with the heritage area, things that are important to Yuma County, but working on a national level. So I like doing that kind of stuff. I also raised 2 boys, one that's age 25, working with me here on the farm. His name's Kirk, and the other one's 22. His name's Ty, and he's trying to get into the Air Force. I'm married to my wife, Eileen. She's our CFO and does our books, and she's an accounting background. So I kind of got all bases covered, but like to hunt and fish, and just like to be out in ag and working in the ground.
Great. Where do you want to serve as state legislative representative for District 13? What do you bring to this particular position that you feel is different from the other candidates?
Well, I didn't read the other candidates' bios, but what I think of why I want to be a state legislature, what I bring to the table is from a rural community. I have a church background. I serve on a church board of directors, so I understand the needs of people. Whether we're helping the needy or whether we're helping somebody that's got an issue with water. So I think I bring a background that's diverse in helping the community and helping to serve. Like I said before on the first question, I've been to Congress. I don't have a problem giving tours to whether it's the state U.S. senator or whether we're going to be giving out food to the needy on the south side of Yuma. So.
Supervisor McLeod, your question?
Yeah, can you describe for us the process that a bill goes through to become law?
It's a trick question.
The process of bill that goes through to become law. So we have to, right now we're in the middle of the session, so the process would be that you would start off either the legislature or the citizens would come forward and bring that up in the fall typically. You would present that bill in January before the session starts to the as a sitting representative. That would go, and they would decide to go into committee. So you design the bill, write the bill. The state legislature usually does, or you would work with your lobbyist or your county committee, or to figure out how that's going to fit which law you're trying to do. Take that bill to the state legislature. They would take it before the committee. It gets heard in their subcommittees. It gets voted on, either amended. It goes towards if it comes out of committee, then it can go to the floor of the House, and then the House would then vote on that to move forward to the joint committee to eventually be signed by the governor.
All right. What actions will you take to get quickly up to speed in the bills and issues that former Representative Shooter sponsored or championed during this legislative session?
The actions that we need to do to be up to speed is first figure out what the priorities of the county are, and some of those, and we'll look at those. Which priorities of the county, what the priorities of the city, what's going on here in Yuma, because I'm not sure if some of the bills that Shooter was sponsoring are necessarily pertain to what exactly we're doing here. So I have to look into some of those. There is hearings already currently on water that are very important to Yuma County. I've been briefed on some of those just because I'm a water user and part of irrigation district, so I am up to speed on some of those. Those are very important. There's committee meetings on those again tomorrow. But research what the priorities of the county are, and then figure out how, if it's something that we need to go ahead and try to figure out where it is in committee, and see if we need to pick it up and run with it.
That's the next question. How will you ensure that Yuma County's interests and priorities are heard and taken seriously at the state legislature? See what I mean? You almost answered all that.
Yeah, no, it's important. There's a network. I mean, obviously, everything that's important to Yuma County is not necessarily going to get passed at the state level, because that's what the process is. And so you need to figure out what is best for Yuma County, and then ultimately this seat's going to do what's best for LD 13, and how that fits in with your common beliefs or your personal beliefs, and how that fits in with the rural community. And I know that this seat has always been a champion for rural issues and rural rights statewide. So that's something that we got to carry very, very proudly and very important. And so that's kind of what we need to do.
Right. Tim, the last one is it's more directed for you, to allow you to ask any questions from the board if you want to ask any questions, or would you like to make a final statement to help us in our decision-making process?
I don't necessarily have any questions for the board, except if I am appointed, I would like to visit maybe on the specific issues of as far as you have something that's in mind that personally, that a bill that you might know, that's because you look at a list, a big list, and it's like, this is something that's very important that you've been working on, so we need to have those conversations one-on-one. I just would to say that Yuma's, we all know this, Yuma's a diamond in the desert, and the whole world looks at it. It shines for everybody to see, and but we got to protect that. We have to, and I don't take that lightly. So to whom much is given, much is expected. So I'll carry this. I'll carry that if you give me the chance.
Any questions from the board? No? Well, that's it. Thank you very much. You can take a seat, and we'll go on through the deliberation process. And as I stated before, and I mean, Tim wasn't here in the room, this is a legislative district. The seats was held by our Republicans, so we're going to let our Republican members here take the lead in the process. It's going to be a somewhat simple process. I'm going to open up the process for nominations. I'll take nominations. If there's more than one, I'll take two. Or, there's three. You could actually have three nominations. And then I'll take the vote based on the order in which nominations are made. So, whomever gets nominated first gets the vote. If they don't get the majority, then we'll go on to the second nominee and so forth until we come up to a decision. So take a deep breath.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I just want to make a comment, and I just want to take the opportunity to thank all three of you for stepping up. It's really unexpected how it happened, but I want to really thank. And I have no doubt in my mind that any of you will do absolutely great and represent us.
Yeah,
So, thank you.
that's right.
I second that.
Is that a nomination?
No, but I second that.
Yeah, no, it's a true feeling from us. I mean, look, you know, considering how this happened, you know, you're really stepping into a hot seat. So, you know, for you to step up and be willing to just leave whatever you're doing right now and take off, you know, and just serve, it really shows up really well in your character and so forth. So thank you very much. I should have mentioned that, but I was going to leave that to the winner.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor McLeod?
thank you. I really appreciate the precinct committeeman sending us 3 quality individuals, any one of which could step in and do the job. And so I've received, as you could imagine, many, many phone calls on this issue from across the state, quite frankly, not just in Yuma. And I told everybody pretty much the same thing. We have a job interview. That's how we're going to approach it, or how I'm going to approach it. And as I listened today, as we all did, I find that there is one candidate that has spent a lifetime preparing for this, whose goal it was. And I think that came through pretty clearly. Any of them would serve well, but I am going to nominate Paul Brierly.
I haven't opened it yet. You have to open. Wait. This is why I have a tough time leading
It's
this
a
board.
motion.
Yeah, hold on. I need to open nominations. The process is going to be that I open nominations, okay? So give me a second and I'll formally now open nominations, right?
I
So,
nominate Mr. Brierly for reasons aforementioned.
Mr.
Brierly, Paul Brierly.
Is there a second? Or is there another nomination, excuse me? Because you see, nominations don't take a second, okay? Is there another nomination?
Mr. Chairman, same thing that Russ said. We've got a lot of good candidates. All 3 of them can step up there and fill the position, and I think do an outstanding job. I'm going to nominate Tim Dunn to be our
This is great.
representative.
So we let the Republican members nominate. They nominate one each.
That's what's
But,
special
you know,
about
this is the way the federal government should work. Now we get the Democrats get to make the decision. This is great.
Oh, no.
Now we know what's wrong with Paul.
This is what I was hoping didn't happen, right? So that we could say, well, we could, if it was a blame or something, we would blame the Republicans. But look, they nominated one each. Okay, there's been is there any other nominations? Just in case, no more nominations. I'll entertain a motion to close nominations.
Move to close nominations.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to close nominations. All those in favor of closing nominations, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, now we take it to a vote. On the first nomination, the nomination was for Mr.
Brierly.
I call him Brinkley. I don't know why. It seems easier to me, for some reason. But Mr. Brierly, it's been nominated. Mr. Brierly's been nominated. I'm going to have to take roll call on this one so that we can, go through the process. We'll begin with Supervisor Pancrasi, who normally will take her time and, tell us how she feels. So start the voting in the right side.
Nay.
Supervisor McLeod,
Aye.
Supervisor Porches,
Nay.
aye.
Nay.
Nay. Supervisor Simmons,
Nay.
All right.
and Reyes.
I don't think I need to vote, but, we'll just move on to the next nomination. This will fail.
no.
This will fail.
It's a roll
This will
call.
fail
No,
four-
no.
This will fail 4-1.
No.
I'll vote aye, so it's going to be 3-2, right? Sorry, Paul, I voted for you. The next nomination is Tim's nomination, and we'll do the same process. We'll begin with the right.
Supervisor Pancrasi,
Aye.
Supervisor McLeod,
Aye.
Supervisor Porches,
Aye.
Supervisor Simmons,
Aye.
You have
Aye.
to vote.
See, I voted for both of you guys. So I want to make that point clear, but I mean,
Motion
obviously,
carries.
Tim, you've been
5-0.
selected and chosen. Congratulations, and I mean, I tell you what, though, it was a great. We'll get the job, and we will start. There is a process to be followed, and we will follow the process. Send the notices, the letters, and everything else, but it should all be done before the end of the day. So be careful what you wish for, because you may end up getting it now. So, and I do want to just finish this by telling you, I was extremely pleased with the quality and, of the candidates, and it was a tough choice. Personally, for me, it was a tough choice. I got a lot of emails and I've got a lot of calls, and the majority of them were very good, though. They spoke well of the candidates, both of them, or all three of them, and it was it was a tough choice. It was a tough decision, and but we do appreciate all the time and effort you put to it, and we have no doubt whatsoever that whomever was chosen was going to do a great job. So there you go, Tim. Thank you very much. Unless I don't even want to open it to the public. Is there
Mr. Chair,
something
can
else
I
we
make
need
a
to?
comment?
Sure, you can make a comment.
Thank
I
you,
thought
Paul.
you were gonna make it before
Thank you,
voting.
Tim. Thank you, Corley. Thank you all for being willing to step forward and represent Yuma County at the state legislature. I can tell you from past experiences, it is going to be a very tough job. And whoever, with Tim being there, he is going to need the support of every single person in this room to help make sure that the Yuma County's interests, especially water, are taken very seriously. And
Good luck.
good luck.
I just want to point out and remind Mr. Dunn that he did tell us that he would vote the way I asked him to every time. I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, Mr.
I know that you will vote the way I want you to.
No.
First
A
of
lot
all,
of
we forgot to ask you for a social security number and the checking account number, but we'll get to that later.
A lot of places have candidates, and you always have one that stands out amongst the others, and it makes it easy. This one, there was no easy choice, because
Yeah.
all three of you were more than qualified to step up and take Mr. Shooter's place. And like I said, I hope everybody here gets behind, supports their choice, and good luck.
All right, Supervisor Porteous, anything?
No, just, once again, thank you for stepping up, and Tim, I'm sure you'll keep in contact with us, and so as we will, so thank you. And
We will discuss pay later. Right now, we can't. But no, thank you very much. And thank everybody for coming, and thank everybody for taking part in the process. To all those people who called or send emails, suffice it to say that they were taken into consideration, and that at the end of the day, we had no bad choice to make. So, the choice has been made, and thank you very much. Okay, this ends the meeting.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.